And here with me now is Republican Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, and from a key swing district. So what more needs to happen before the House leadership, you're part of that, joins the calls for Santos to resign?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Andrea. I don't think he should be here, that's for sure. But there's a process in place that has to apply equally to all members from both parties and both chambers. And that's the House Ethics Committee, as your panel just pointed out. To the extent that there's concerns about how long that would take, we should just have an expedited review. There's got to be a system in place that's consistently applied across the board. But I, for one, do not think he should be serving here.
I mean, there should have been, arguably, he should not have been sworn in. And if there weren't such a tight margin and a tight speaker's vote, he probably wouldn't have been sworn in. You would have gotten rid of this problem.
Well, again, House Ethics there's a system that we have to follow, because you can't have inconsistent processes when situations like this arise. His conduct was egregious. I personally don't think he should be here, but I think the Ethics Committee has to do their work. It should be done quickly, and they should return to the House with their findings, and then we act.
And Republicans, as you know, are forging ahead with a number of these very politically toxic bills. First of all, abortion. Let's talk about that. I talked to Nancy Mace today, who called it tone deaf. Do you agree that this is not the way to go? Brendan Buck just said that this is not the lesson that Republicans should have learned after the midterms.
Yeah, no, Nancy's a friend of mine, and I agree with her. She's right about that. If you look at the overwhelming majority of people in this country, Andrea, they believe in legality on the front end of the continuum, and they believe in reasonable limits on the back end. Our policies ought to reflect the will of the people in America. And I don't think it's wise to be going down this path. But by the way, Nancy and I have spoken. We have a large group of people, by the way, who are going to hold our own party in check when it comes to what agenda they advance. We have a 4-vote margin. There are many more than 4 of us that are going to be able to halt anything that's, any kind of single-party solutions or any type of extreme legislation.
So you served as an FBI special agent and a federal prosecutor. Your colleagues are pledging government investigations of the investigators. The so-called Committee on Weaponization of the Federal Government, headed by Jim Jordan. Scott Perry was a subject of the January 6th committee investigation, refusing to recuse himself from any investigation of that committee and wants to be a member of it. Some of my colleagues are saying that the better name for this committee should be the Committee to Obstruct Justice. What do you say about crossing the line between executive and legislative branch on prosecutions?
Yeah, I think we ought to give all of our colleagues the benefit of the doubt that they're going to conduct themselves in a manner that's becoming of the House. One of our jobs, Andrea, is oversight. That's a serious responsibility, but it shouldn't be abused. And I think that, we should assume that they're going to do their job in the right manner. If it doesn't work out that way, then we'll address that for sure.
But how do we assume that, let's say someone like Scott Perry, who says he will not recuse himself from this investigation if he becomes, he's already been part of a Justice Department investigation of January 6th. His phone has been confiscated by the FBI, the agency he used to work for. So why should he be part of an investigation of the investigators and, according to the way these rules have been written, able to see the criminal, output of the prosecutors while an investigation is pending?
Andrew, I don't think the members have even been selected yet. I may be serving on that committee, and I'm a lifelong FBI agent. So let's see who they staff the committee up with, what the balance is, what the ratio is. Speaker McCarthy said he's going to let the Democrat conference choose their own members, which is good. And hopefully it's a fact-finding oversight committee. It's going to have a different look to it than the standard judiciary setup. But again, I think we should start with the presumption that they're going to properly execute their oversight responsibilities. If it turns out not to be the case, then we'll deal with that.
Okay. We look forward to talking to you throughout this process. Thank you very much, Congressman. Thanks for being with us.